Thanks for joining us for the Purdue University CME Group Ag Economy Barometer June 2021 survey results. I'm Jim Minter, Director of the Purdue Center for Commercial Agriculture, and I'm going to share the highlights of the June survey with you. The Ag Economy Barometer declined this month to a reading of 137. That's down 21 points compared to last month's reading of 158. The decline in the barometer was driven mostly by a decline in the index of current conditions, although the index of future expectations also declined. The sharpest decline, however, really was in that current condition index, which fell to 149 from 178 a month earlier. The Farm Financial Performance Index declined sharply to a reading of 96 versus 126 last month and 138 2 months ago, as farmers became more concerned about the ability of their farms to have good financial performance compared to a year earlier. The Farm Capital Investment Index also fell to a reading of 54. That's down from 65 a month earlier, and actually puts the investment index about 10% below where it was this time last year. The weakness in the Capital Investment Index seemed to be focused more on construction than machinery. If you look at construction of buildings and grain bins, the percentage of producers planning to reduce construction rose to 61% this month versus 58% in May. If you look at farm machinery purchase plans, the biggest shift was in the percentage of producers planning to hold purchases constant, rising to 45% from 40% in May. Farmers in this month's survey remained relatively optimistic about farmland values. When we focused on their outlook for farmland values in the upcoming year, the index did decline to a reading of 148 from 157. However, that 148 is still the third highest reading we've ever gotten on that index, going back to 2015. For the second month in a row, we asked corn and soybean producers about their perspective on farmland cash rental rates in 2022. This month, 47% of those producers said they expect to see cash rental rates rise in 2022 compared to 2021. That's down from 65% that felt that way back in May. However, when you look more deeply at those expecting a rise in rates, they expect a significant increase in those cash rental rates. 48% expect a rise of 5 to up to 10% in those cash rental rates, and nearly a third, 32%, expect rates to rise by 10% or more. For the second year in a row, we asked farmers who hire non-family farm labor if they were having difficulty hiring adequate farm labor for their farming operation. And there was a big change this year versus last year. 30% of the farmers in last year's survey said they were having some difficulty with respect to hiring adequate farm labor. This year, that jumped to 66% of the producers in our survey, saying that they had either some or a lot of difficulty with respect to hiring adequate farm labor. There's a lot of interest in leasing of farmland for solar energy. So this month's survey included a series of questions asking producers about solar leasing on their farms and what the opportunities have been. 32% of the producers in our survey said they're aware of solar leasing opportunities for their farm. 9% of all the farms in our survey said they had discussions with companies about solar leasing, and just less than 3%, 2.7% of all farms, have actually signed a solar leasing agreement for their farms. For perspective, that's about double the percentage of farms that reported signing a carbon sequestration contract this past winter and spring on previous barometer surveys. And the rates offered by companies for solar leasing varied quite widely. Among the farmers in our survey who said they had engaged in some discussions with companies about solar leasing on their farm, 32% said they were offered a rate of less than $500 an acre. 22% said they were offered a rate of $500 up to $750 an acre. 19% said they were offered rates of $750 to up to $1,000 per acre. And just over a fourth of the farmers, 27%, said they were offered a rate of $1,000 per acre or more to lease their farm for solar energy production. That wraps up the highlights for this month's Ag Barometer survey. If you want more details, you can see the full report on our website at purdue.edu/agbarometer. We also have a more detailed version available on our podcast, the Purdue Commercial AgCast podcast. And then you can also tune in for our next webinar focused on the corn and soybean outlook, which will be on Wednesday, July 14th at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. On behalf of the Purdue Center for Commercial Agriculture, I'm Jim Mintert. Thanks for joining us.